Let's bring Benjamin Anthony in on this, the CEO and co-founder of the MirYam Institute, which focuses on Israeli policy and its relationship to the U.S. I'll start, Benjamin, with Ophir Kunis here in New York, is the Consul General for Israel in New York. We had him sitting here with me last night talking about this. It was an extended conversation, but this was the point that he made over and over again. Let me play it.
There's no starvation in the Gaza Strip. Now I want to talk about the Hamas lies and to show you all. Yeah. This is Osama al-Rakab.
Okay.
He suffers from cystic fibrosis and he is currently being treated in Italy. He is not starving in Gaza. We must call out this lie. I'm sick and tired from the Hamas lies. They cross all the red lines.
What would you say, Benjamin, to an American audience watching this and just trying, and they obviously hear the opposite from others that are on giving their analysis about who to believe, what's really going on? What would you say?
Yeah, Connell, first of all, it's good to be with you. Thank you for having me. I think that firstly, I would begin by challenging the viewers to remember who it is that we're dealing with on the other side of this equation. We're dealing with a genocidal, jihadist, terror organization by its own definition of self that launched a brutal attack on October the 7th. And it fully anticipated a response by the Israel Defense Forces, a military response. That attack, of course, as people hopefully still recall, resulted in 1,200 deaths, 252 kidnappings, including men, women, children, toddlers, Holocaust survivors. And when the military response came, Hamas operated by a very clear policy of allowing its terror army members to take refuge in the tunnels underneath the Gaza Strip that they'd buried over a period of many years, while ensuring and forcing its civilians to stay above ground. Now, this is a stark contrast, for example, to the actions of the government of my erstwhile country, the United Kingdom. During World War II, in the context of the Blitz campaign launched by the Nazis against Great Britain, Winston Churchill implored the British citizenry to take refuge in the London Underground tunnels so that they could survive the onslaught, the unjustified onslaught of the Nazis. Here you have the opposite. You have Hamas hiding its terrorists inside the tunnels while forcing civilians to stay in the line of fire as Israel justly and rightly responded in the face of the brutal attack of October the 7th. So when you consider that that's who we're dealing with, that they're willing to have their own people killed, one shouldn't be surprised when we realize that they're willing to fabricate the slander of famine. And just one final point, Connell, if I may. Sure. This is the latest in a long list of slanders. We began with the slander of genocide. The Palestinian population is estimated at approximately 2 million. In the worst case scenario, the number of killed during the course of this war rests at the figure of about 60,000, with a 1-to-1 ratio between terrorists and civilians. That does not genocide make, not at all. Second slander, ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing would be the deliberate expulsion of Palestinian Arabs, in this case from the Gaza Strip. We know that Israel's in this quandary of how to feed the populace of Gaza precisely because that populace remains inside the Gaza Strip. It's not an ethnic cleansing, it's quite the opposite. And now we come to the latest tool of the international community, who are led by the nose foolishly by Hamas, willingly and willfully, the slander of famine. Complete nonsense. More than 90 million meals have been distributed by the GHF, that's the food distribution organization inside the Gaza Strip, alone. So this is complete nonsense, and we ought to see it as such. Let's be a bit clear-eyed about who we're dealing with.
Is it possible or even reasonable to have a discussion where that everything that you just went through could be true in a world where Israel still, after everything that's happened, still bears at least some of the responsibility and or could have done more earlier for the civilians that are, however they're characterized, undoubtedly suffering in Gaza? Could all of it be true at once, I guess is what I'm asking.
It's 100% reasonable to have any discussion, and I would have that discussion with you. So as an example, it's very, very clear that there is discomfort inside the Gaza Strip. We have a displaced population there. Anybody who seeks to dismiss that as a reality is dealing in fantasy. As a consequence of that displacement, there are shortages of the basic amenities, the basic supplies that we expect in our day-to-day lives. Right. That's an inevitable consequence of war, and you're right to raise it. But that is a very far cry from a famine, and it's an even further cry from a policy of famine, as Israel is being accused of pursuing here, as a weapon of war.
But are there other policy changes that Israel might make now? Or does this discussion and what's happening lead to a different approach? Or should it lead to a different approach in any way? And if so, what way from Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Yeah, there are policy changes that Israel is making. You're right to raise those. I just want to give a little bit of context and I'll come to the policy changes, if I may. I'll do it briefly. Okay. From the outset of October 7th, given that Israel was fighting on 7 fronts, it was affixed as a strategic imperative by the leading advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu that if Israel was going to be able to deal with Hezbollah and the Houthis and Iran's nuclear weapons capabilities and threats in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and elsewhere, it had to ensure that it didn't lay itself bare to the notion of a humanitarian crisis inside the Gaza Strip, beyond the discomforts and the inconveniences and the inevitable consequences of war, instantly a war that was foisted upon the Gazans by way of their own leadership on October 7th as a consequence of the massacre they carried out. That has been the policy of the State of Israel, to avoid a humanitarian crisis inside Gaza, because we realized that if we fell prey to that, we wouldn't be given the latitude required to prosecute this war. Now, despite that fact, there is now the slander of famine. And so Israel has not only increased the aid that it's supplying to the Gaza Strip on ground, but it's actually carrying out aid drops by way of parachuting aid into the Gaza Strip. But I have to tell you, in my opinion, as an observer and a participant in this conflict, absolutely no effort will suffice, nor will it satiate the insatiable appetite of the international community to continue to criticize Israel for doing that which any other state would do, namely putting out the source of this threat to our very existence and our people.
Okay, because of that experience, your reference, your perspective is always welcome, Benjamin. Thank you for discussing this with us today. We appreciate it.